Happy Friday. Welcome to Send It In, presented by BetMGM here on the BetQL Network. I'm your host, PJ Glasser. As always, guys, we got a great show to wrap up the week today. Once again, diving into a little bit of everything. We'll talk plenty of college hoops. We got a loaded college basketball slate coming up tomorrow. Bunch of great rivalry games. We'll dive into that. Give out some leans that I like for some of those big matchups. We got the second round of the Pebble Beach Pebble Beach Pro-Am. Out in Pebble Beach. We'll dive into that as well. We'll also talk Super Bowl, of course, wrapping up the week. Matt Horner going to join us middle of the show for Model Making Money, and then we'll wrap everything up with our favorite plays of the day. As always, any questions, any comments, best bets that you guys have for us, let us know. You can go to twitch.tv/BetQL, or you can go to YouTube/Odyssey Sports as well. And if you miss any part of the show over the next 30 minutes, you want to go back, listen to the podcast, just check it out wherever you get your podcast. You can go find the Send It In podcast. Glasses in session. Let's get rolling here on a Friday. We'll start by going off the glass. So there are 2 games tonight I like in college hoops, and then 8 games that I want to look at for tomorrow's slate in college basketball. We'll start with one of the best mid-major rivalries in college basketball, and that's going to be Akron going up against Kent State tonight. Kent State, the home team, favored by 2.5. The total in the game is 144.5. So this is one of those fishy lines because Akron is 8-0 in the MAC this year in conference play. Kent State's 4-4, yet Kent State is the favorite, being at home. I agree that Kent State should be the favorite. I don't know if they should be this big a favorite, though, at -2.5. I like Kent State to win the game, but these games are always close. These two teams had a brawl last year, so they do not like each other. These fan bases do not like each other one bit. I would expect this game to come down to the wire. I like Kent State on the money line. Then we got another great rivalry, the Battle of Indiana between the Hoosiers and the Boilermakers. Purdue at home tonight, favored by 12.5 with a total of 146.5. Now, anybody who follows college basketball knows that Mackey Arena is one of the best home courts in college basketball. It's really tough to beat Purdue on their home floor. Indiana did it a couple of years ago, and the Hoosiers tend to always play Purdue pretty tough in West Lafayette. Indiana's one of these teams that's on the bubble. If the tournament started today, they'd be out. This is the kind of game that they really need to win for their resume. So when we get a rivalry game like this, and we have one team who really needs the game, I'll always back that team, especially when we get that many points. So I like Indiana plus 12.5 against Purdue. Then we have number 5 Florida taking on number 8 Tennessee. The Vols, I would expect this game going off tomorrow. Now we're getting into Saturday's slate. I would expect, looking at the KenPom numbers, Tennessee probably to be about a 4.5, 5.5 point favorite. KenPom has Florida about 1.5 better than Tennessee. Vols have a good home court advantage. They're coming off a loss against Kentucky. You wouldn't expect Tennessee to lose 2 games in a row at home. These teams also played all the way back. First game of SEC play, maybe the second game of SEC play, Florida wiped Tennessee in Gainesville. So not only is Tennessee looking to avoid losing 2 straight games at home, but they're also looking to avoid the season sweep to Florida. So there's a lot of reasons to like Tennessee tomorrow. I don't know if I want to lay 4.5, 5.5 points with them. If this number is under 4, if we get like a 3.5, I think that's a good bet on Tennessee, but I just look at a money line parlay piece with the Vols. I think they get the win, but it's going to be a lower scoring game. Florida's a tough team to blow out just because of how good their offense is. So I like the Vols to win. Anything -4 or below, I'd look at Tennessee. Then we got number 20 Missouri taking on number 14 Mississippi State. I would expect Mississippi State to be about a 5.5, 6.5 point favorite in this game. Anything under 7, I like Mississippi State. I would lay the points with them. Mississippi State, for me, is a pretty easy team to handicap. When they go up against the upper echelon teams in the SEC, the Bamas, the Floridas, the Auburns, the Tennessees, I don't want any part of them. When they go up against the middle tier, when they go up against the Mizzous, the Oklahomas, the Ole Miss, kind of that tier, Arkansas, that's when I want to bet Mississippi State. Really good team. They had a tough loss against Bama. I think they're going to bounce back against Mizzou. I think their defense, being at home, is going to cause Missouri into some turnovers. So I like Mississippi State. Again, anything under 7, I would look at the Bulldogs tomorrow. Then we got number 1 Auburn on the road taking on number 23 Ole Miss. Once again, this spread should be about 5.5, 6.5, somewhere in that neighborhood. I'm going to like the under in this game. Auburn and Ole Miss, 2 really good defensive teams, and I think that's how the game is going to play out. Auburn's a team that can win games in the 80s, but they can also win games in the 50s. I expect this game to be played in the 60s, so I will look at an under in Ole Miss and Auburn. Then we got number 11, Kansas, on the road tomorrow, taking on Baylor in Waco. This is going to be one of those games where Kansas, a ranked team, is going to be on the road against an unranked Baylor team, and Kansas is probably going to be an underdog. Kansas normally plays pretty well in Waco. You know, these teams have had some big matchups throughout the last couple of years, and Kansas seems to always come out on top in a close win. I think anything under 3 is a good bet on Baylor. I would expect this line to probably be about 2.5. I'm hoping we get a pick 'em because then I'd really like Baylor. But anything 1.5, 2, 2.5 on the Bears, I would lay that. I would take them to win the game. Anything 3 or above, probably just the money line piece. Maybe you want to money line parlay Tennessee and Baylor together as an option, but I think Baylor's look tomorrow against Kansas. Then we have number 22 Texas Tech on the road taking on number 3 Houston. This game's probably going to be like 12.5 with Houston. Their defense is just so good. It's so suffocating. Maybe another game where you want to look at like a first half under, or you want to look at a Texas Tech team total under. When teams go on the road and they play Houston, especially if it's a ranked matchup on a Saturday and they're going to have a good crowd and that building's going to be really tough to play in, it's going to be tough for Texas Tech to score some points. So maybe look at a Texas Tech team total under in that game. Then the 3 games that we have to end the night are all really good ones. We got maybe the best rivalry in all of college sports between North Carolina and Duke. UNC 13.5-point dogs against Duke. There are some lines out there right now. I've already taken the Tar Heels plus the points. I've already bet them on the money line at plus 680 as well. Hubert Davis, since he's been at North Carolina, has had a ton of success at Cameron Indoor. They've won there 3 of the last 4 years. And Duke has pretty much been the better team than North Carolina all 4 of those years. Maybe you look at one, maybe last year North Carolina was the better team. They ended up being a number 1 seed in the tournament. But for the most part, Duke's been the better team. And Carolina's gone in there and they've always played well. And this team is squarely on the bubble right now. Carolina, there aren't many opportunities in the ACC to pick up some big resume wins. This is definitely one of them. I think 13.5 is too many points. I like Carolina. And I just think the money line price is too big as well, plus 680. So I like the Heels in that matchup as well. Then we got number 25 UConn on the road taking on number 9 Marquette. Folks, don't be surprised if Marquette's like an 8.5, 9.5 point favorite in this game. A lot of people are going to see UConn being that big an underdog, and I think a lot of people are going to bet the Huskies. I would be a little bit careful of that. UConn does not have a very good defense. I worry about them struggling to stop Marquette, so I think this is going to be like an under-type game. Even though Marquette's going to be able to score, I think their defense is going to hold UConn as well. These games are usually lower scoring than anticipated. I see it like a 68, 66, 68, maybe 60 kind of game. So I would go under on Marquette and UConn. Then we got Arkansas and Kentucky. John Calipari making his return to Lexington. Kentucky favored by 11.5 points. And honestly, I'd lay the points with Kentucky. Arkansas just does not have enough offense, I think, to keep pace with Kentucky, especially on the road at Rupp Arena. This is going to be one of the best environments we see all year in college basketball with Calipari making his return. So I think it's going to be really tough for Arkansas throughout the full 40 minutes to keep pace with Kentucky's offense. I'd lay the double digits with Kentucky tomorrow against Arkansas. All right, let's talk some golf now. We're out at Pebble Beach, second round. So we do a little golfing with Glasser. We did this yesterday when we look at some of the tee times coming up. We got 2 balls today, maybe some value on some of these guys. We'll start with Sung J M and Corey Connors, who are just getting ready to tee off right now. Sung Jae's minus 145 in his head-to-head against Corey Connors. Sung Jae in round 1 shot a 4 under. Corey Connors in round 1 shot a 2 under. They played Pebble Beach yesterday. They're both at Spyglass Hill today, which is the easier course. And I'm going to take Sung J M. He's the better overall golfer than Corey Connors. The conditions today don't look like they're all that bad. Maybe over the weekend we start to see the wind pick up a little bit, but I would only take Sung Jae in this 2-ball against Corey Connors. Then we got Thomas Dietrich at minus 118 going up against Cam Davis at minus 105. Cam Davis shot one of the lower scores yesterday. He shot a 7 under. Dietrich shot a 3 under, played some pretty good golf in his own right. Cam Davis had a great round yesterday. I don't expect him to shoot another 5, 6, 7 under. So I think Dietrich would be the look today at minus 118. Then we have Davis Thompson, minus 110. Austin Eckroat at minus 115. These guys are also teeing off at 106. Thompson yesterday went minus 3, and Eckroat went minus 5. It's the reason why this one's pretty much a pick 'em. I think you could go either way, but I take Eckroat, shorter hitter, good iron player. I'll take him at minus 115. Scotty Scheffler's a minus 400 today in his 2-ball, going up against Brian Harman at plus 290. I would never lay a minus 400 in a 2-ball because it's one round of golf. Scotty could be incredible for 3 rounds, but could be bad today. So, which is why I would never lay minus 400, but it would only be Scotty for me. I wouldn't take Harman, even at the plus 290. Scotty bogeys the first hole yesterday, still ends up shooting a 5 under. Still the best player in the world, so I would pass on that one. Akshay Bhatia minus 145 going up against Christian Bezadenhout. These guys tee off at 1:19 p.m. Eastern time. Bhatia went 3 under yesterday. Seabez went 4 under yesterday. Both of these guys, their games fit the course pretty well, but I like Bhatia's a little bit more. Seabez would be good if it was windier conditions out at Pebble. I'll go with Bhatia at minus 145. Taylor Pendrith teeing off with Siwoo Kim in round 2 at 1:19 p.m. Eastern time. Pendrith yesterday was popular this week. Shot a 5 under. Siwoo Kim shot a 2 under. I like Pendrith again. This course should fit Taylor Pendrith really well, which is why he was very popular this week. I think he has another good day, so I'll go with Pendrith at minus 125. Then we got Cam Young, minus 105, going up against Matt Fitzpatrick, minus 118. These guys also tee off at 1:19 p.m. Eastern time. Both really struggled yesterday. Matty Fitz and Cam Young both shot a 1 over. This course really doesn't favor either of these guys. Fitzpatrick is kind of like, he's a mutter. You know, he likes the bad conditions. He likes when scores are hard to come by. Cam Young is one of the longest hitters on tour, and that's not what you need this week. It's not distance, it's about accuracy. So I didn't like the course setup or this course in general for either of these guys this week. If I had to pick, though, I'd probably go with Fitzpatrick at minus 118. Then we got Tommy Fleetwood, minus 135, with Keegan Bradley, plus 105. These guys also teeing off at 1:19 p.m. Eastern time. I lean Fleetwood here over Keegan Bradley. Fleetwood's game, I think, is a little better equipped for Pebble Beach and for Spyglass just because, again, he's a shorter hitter. He's a good iron player. He likes when the wind picks up a little bit. He's usually good on these coastline golf courses. So I'll take Tommy at minus 135 over Keegan Bradley. And then finally, Justin Thomas, minus 220, going up against Jordan Spieth, who's plus 160. JT was one of our picks this week to win. Got off to a great start yesterday at 6 under par. I expect him to have another good day. If you want to maybe parlay Justin Thomas at minus 220 with somebody else on the board in a 2-ball, I think that would be a good look. I wouldn't lay the 220 by itself, but I think Thomas in a parlay would be a good bet. He should shoot a better score than Jordan Spieth today. All right, let's get into model making money now. Check in with our guy Matt Horner, get some of his best bets for today. Talk a little Super Bowl as well. Matt, great to see you, sir. What are 5-star plays BetQL has for us today?
Yeah, howdy there, PJ. We're going to go to college basketball tonight. The model loves Dayton getting 2 points against St. Louis. Has Dayton as a 2-point favorite in this game as a fair number. So obviously getting plus the points is going to be a 5-star play for us here. Also likes them on the money line as well. Obviously, they're -2 as a projected fair line. So give us the Dayton Flyers tonight in every which way against St. Louis.
All right, very good. Matt, what about yourself? What are some of your best bets for tonight? College hoops, NBA, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I got to be quite honest. This slate tonight, quite the stinker. There is not much here that I'm absolutely loving. I do have a small sprinkle on the Bulls getting 4 points against Toronto tonight. The Bulls got blown out by the Celtics in that last game, absolutely uncompetitive. Toronto, winners of 5 straight. They're 8-2 ATS over their last 10. They've just been on fire recently. And I think people are going to be hammering the Raptors here against the Bulls, who have lost 3 of their last 4 games. So I'm going to take the Bulls +4. This just seems like a spot to me where my Bulls could have a bit of a bounce back. So I'll take the 4 points with Chicago.
All right, very good. Matt, I was talking at the beginning of the show. We got a great day of college basketball coming up tomorrow. You got a ton of rivalry games, right? Feels like a great day to bet a lot of underdogs. We only have a couple of lines out for some of these games. But any games that you're circling, any games where you have a feeling you're probably going to be on a certain side of one of these games tomorrow?
Oh, absolutely. I already have several bets in. Some of these lines are very fishy for us tomorrow. I'll get right into it. Tennessee laying -3.5 against Florida. The Vols have lost two straight games. Florida has won three in a row. And it just feels like everybody's going to be taking the Gators, who have won three in a row, getting 3 points against the Vols, who have lost two in a row. I think there's a reason why Tennessee is favored by over a possession in this game. And I think they're going to cover. So give me Tennessee -3.5 against Florida. Also taking Oklahoma -3.5 against Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt coming off that upset against Kentucky in their last match. OU just lost to Texas A&M. Feels like a spot to fade Vandy. They've been hot lately, so give me Oklahoma -3.5 as well. Baylor. Bears coming off a loss to BYU in their last match. Jayhawks, number 11 in the country. And yet, if you take a look at this early line, Baylor is actually favored in some places and +1.5 in others. So give me the Bears here at home against Kansas. You were just talking about Texas Tech and Houston. Texas Tech Raiders have been on an absolute roll, winners of 5 straight, and they're a huge underdog against Houston in this game, 9.5 points. People are going to be taking the team that's hot right now, getting all of those points. I think that's a mistake, and I think Houston is going to roll over them here. So I already bet Houston -9.5. And then the last one I'm taking a look at, Northwestern +1.5 against Wisconsin. Again, just a simple handicap here. Wisconsin's number 17 in the country, and they're basically a pick-em with Northwestern, who's lost 2 straight games. So give me the Wildcats as a pick-em here against Wisconsin.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff there. I mean, we were talking about some of these games at the start, Matt, and like what I was expecting the lines to be and the numbers that you were throwing out on us. Like, I think there's some really good value, especially Baylor.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they should be favored by like 2.5, 3 in that game. So looking like a good card tomorrow. Looking forward to that. Let's talk some Super Bowl, Matt. Obviously, we're getting closer and closer to the big game down in New Orleans between the Chiefs and the Eagles. Let's just start with the sided total. We know Kansas City's favored 1.5. The total is 49.5. Do you like anything in this game, side or total?
Yeah, I bet the under already at 49.5. It's moved to 48.5 as well. I think a lot of people, well, obviously the over is always popular in the Super Bowl, right? Everybody wants to see points. So everybody and their brother is going to be betting an over. 70% of the cash right now over at BetMGM is on the over. So the books are going to want a low scoring game. And I think a lot of people still think of Super Bowl 57. The same two teams just played each other 2 years ago in this game. 38-35, the final score, an absolute barn burner. The defense is just getting torched left and right. These defenses much better than the ones we saw in that game. Eagles, number 1 passing defense in the NFL, number 1 in yards per play. Chiefs, 8th against the rush, which is what the Eagles love to do, obviously with Saquon Barkley. They're 8th against the rush and 12th in yards per play. These defenses are much better than what we saw in that game. So give me the under here. I just think the total is a little inflated at 49.5. I also sprinkled the Eagles' first half in this game on the money line. Philadelphia just shows a propensity to get out in front in a lot of these games, and the question is if they can actually hold that lead. They weren't able to against the Chiefs last time, and sometimes this year they haven't been able to hold that lead, but they get out to a hot start. So give me the Eagles in the first half on the money line.
All right, I like it. What about props, Matt? Obviously, when we're dealing with the Super Bowl, man, there are so many props to choose from. You get your regular passing props, rushing props, receiving props, but there's so many unique ones that come with this game. Anything that you've already bet, or are there certain things that you're waiting for until kickoff that you think are going to get inflated that maybe you're looking to bet an under on potentially?
Right. I did play a couple of these props. I played neither player to miss a kick in the game. So basically no missed kicks or extra points in the game. Butker for the Chiefs hasn't missed a single kick in 6 straight postseason games. He's been great, and I see no reason why he would miss a kick here. Elliott's the guy, obviously, you'd be worrying about. He has not been great for the Eagles this year. He's missed a kick in 10 of his 20 games, so obviously not fantastic. But if you look at some of his stats, he's playing indoors here in this game. He's 5 of 6 on field goals indoors this year and 9 of 9 on extra points. He's been significantly worse when he plays outdoors, but we're in the Superdome in New Orleans here. So I like that value at plus 200 for neither player to miss a kick. So I went ahead and took that. And I also bet a novelty prop because I have to have a novelty prop. There has to be something I have to be on. Coin toss to be tails. Everybody likes heads. Heads has been the play for a couple years now. But I like tails because tails never fails. And there's my handicap, guys. So I took it.
You got a 50-50 shot, right? I mean, as good as you can to hit any bet, so we'll see what happens. And then, Matt, before I let you go, is there a player that you're targeting in the Super Bowl that you think is going to have a monster game? I think this is going to be a Devontae Smith game in the Super Bowl. I really like a bunch of his props. Anybody that you're looking forward to betting in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I already placed some Dallas Goedert props, 7+ receptions as well, alternate line laddering that up. He's had at least 4 catches in 9 straight playoff appearances. The Chiefs ranked bottom 5 against tight ends in terms of catches and yards this season allowed to them. He's basically Jalen Hurts blanky, and with the Chiefs being so good against the run and focusing so much on Barkley in this game, which granted they should, I think he's going to find his tight end quite a bit in this game. So I took his receptions alternate overs and Karlaftis to get a sack for the Chiefs. He's an up-and-coming pass rusher, basically Chris Jones's replacement, and I think he can get a sack here on the biggest stage.
All right, I like it. Great stuff as always from our guy Matt Horner joining us here on Model Making Money. Matt, have a great weekend, sir. We'll talk to you again. We'll talk to you again soon.
Sure. Thanks, PJ.
You got it. For those people who want to continue to bet but don't have the time to research each individual game, you need to download the BetQL app. It ranks each game on a 1 to 5 star scale based on its unbeatable analysis of spreads and over-unders to player props. Stay up to date and bet confidently with BetQL's help. All right, guys, it is time now for a little glass balls. We look into the futures market. Talk about some Super Bowl MVP, right? Been talking about the big game all week, some passing props that we like, rushing props that we like, receiving props. But now it's time to talk Super Bowl MVP. Usually this is a difficult market to bet long shots in, right? It's usually just the quarterback of the winning team for the most part. Mahomes is the big favorite at plus 105. Then you got Saquon Barkley at plus 240 and Jalen Hurts at plus 375 as well. You would figure the Super Bowl MVP is probably going to go to one of those 3 players, which kind of makes this market tough to bet into. I would bet Mahomes. If I had to bet, if he gave me a free bet and I had to place any guy on it to win the Super Bowl MVP, it would be Patrick Mahomes. I like the Chiefs to win the game. And honestly, I don't really see anybody outside of Mahomes that can win Super Bowl MVP. A lot of smart people, it feels like the under in this game, right? So maybe if you're looking at a 20-17 kind of game, maybe Kareem Hunt has a couple of rushing touchdowns, or maybe there's a defensive player on Kansas City that has a pick 6, scoop and score, whatever it may be. Maybe that's the way that they win MVP, but it just does feel like that Kansas City's only scored more than 30 points once this season, right? Philadelphia's got a really good offense. Mahomes is going to have to make some plays for Kansas City to win this game. So I think if you're looking for a bet, Mahomes would be my guy at plus 105. Between Barkley and Hurts, if we're just breaking down those two, again, you really don't ever see a running back being a shorter favorite than a quarterback for Super Bowl MVP. Certainly makes a lot of sense with the year that Saquon has had. But I think if you're betting between the two, I would take Jalen Hurts. You know, I understand Barkley's rushing prop is in the mid 100. It's like 113.5 or whatever it may be. But we've been talking about this all week. Kansas City does not give up big runs. They just don't. They don't give up the 40, 50, 60-yard runs. And that's where Barkley kills you. Because for a majority of really the season, I would say, and even the playoffs, yes, Barkley has all these games where he has high totals. But in all those games, it feels like he's breaking off 60, 70-yard runs. And if you can limit the home run type plays for Saquon, you know he's gonna pick and choose his spots, right? He's gonna have 8-yard runs, he's gonna have 12-yard runs. But as long as you can avoid the game-breaking plays, as long as you can avoid the big runs, I think that's all Kansas City will take. So if Saquon doesn't have those big runs, I think it's going to be tough for him, right? Because if we get inside the 5-yard line, inside the 3-yard line, then the Eagles are going to more so use the tush push to try and score a touchdown. That's why I think you got to like Jalen Hurts more so, because not only do you have the tush push, but also Hurts looked really good against Washington. We all thought he would be hurt or he'd be showing some signs of being hurt in that NFC Championship game. He looked totally fine. Philly threw the ball a lot more in the NFC title game than I think a lot of us expected them to and him to throw the ball, and I think they're going to throw the ball more in the Super Bowl than we all expect them to. So I think it's going to be a big Jalen Hurts game. I like his over passing yards, and I think if you're looking between Barkley or Hurts for a guy, if you like the Eagles to win, I would look at Jalen Hurts to win Super Bowl MVP. Another way that I think you can attack other markets without maybe betting Super Bowl MVP. So for people out there that want to bet these position players, right? There are going to be people that like Travis Kelce at 15-1, or they're going to be people that like Xavier Worthy at 30-1. Maybe you like A.J. Brown at 35-1 or Devontae Smith at 66-1, whatever it may be, receivers, tight ends that you like. Instead of betting those players to win Super Bowl MVP, I would instead just bet those players to score 2 or more touchdowns, right? Because if you the likeliness of those guys winning Super Bowl MVP is they have to have monster games. They have to score 2 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns. And the problem is, if they're receiving touchdowns, that's going to account for passing touchdowns from their quarterback, right? So Kelsey's not going to have a big game unless Mahomes has a pretty good game. Devontae Smith isn't going to have a big game unless Jalen Hurts has a pretty big game. So I would not take any of those guys for Super Bowl MVP, and instead I would just bet them to score 2 or more passing touchdowns. To me, it's more worth that. So instead of betting Kelce to win Super Bowl MVP at 15-1, I would rather take Kelce to score 2 or more touchdowns at 9-1. Instead of betting Devontae Smith at 66-1 to win Super Bowl MVP, I'd rather just bet him to score 2 touchdowns at 22-1. Obviously, the price isn't as good, but you know if you're sitting there watching the game and your guy scores 2 touchdowns, you know you're hitting your bet. You don't have to worry to see how the rest of the game plays out and hope that the voters come through for you and vote your guy to win Super Bowl MVP. So, you know, this is a market a lot of people talk about. We all want to find the 250-1 long shot that's going to win the Super Bowl MVP. The reality is it's likely going to be Mahomes, it's going to be Barkley, or it's going to be Jalen Hurts. I think if you want to bet the other position players, you just look at for them to score 2+ touchdowns. Maybe you get crazy and bet them to score 3+ touchdowns, whatever it may be. I think if you want to look at defensive players in this game, I would rather go with the Kansas City guys. I would go with like a Chris Jones or a Trent McDuffie or a George Karlaftis. I think that is probably the team. More so, I would look for Super Bowl MVP than I would for Philadelphia. The Eagles have just so many great players that I think it's tough to pick out which defensive player to choose from. Whereas if it's Kansas City, I really think it's going to be Mahomes or it's going to be one of the defensive guys. So if you're going to target defensive long shots, I would rather look at KC than Philadelphia. But my pick to win Super Bowl MVP is going to be the great Patrick Mahomes. I think he wins his 4th title, and the Chiefs get the 3-peat, which brings us to our last segment of the show and our last segment of the week, and that is PJ's Plays. And we'll start right there with Pat Mahomes. Every day on the show this week, and also next week leading up to the big game, we have given out a Super Bowl prop as our prop lock. And today is going to be Patrick Mahomes, Super Bowl MVP at +105. So I really like that one for Pat Mahomes. My dog of the day in college basketball today is going to be Indiana +12.5 against Purdue. Hoosiers are not a very good basketball team, and Purdue is very good, especially at home. But this is a rivalry game, and Indiana needs this game. This is a must-win for the Hoosiers. I like when we're getting a team at this many points, and they're not looking to go in there and cover the spread. They're looking to go in there and win the game outright. So if there's one team that consistently plays Purdue pretty tough in Mackey, it is Indiana. I like the Hoosiers +12.5 tonight on the road against the Boilermakers. And then my best bet is going to be in North Carolina and Duke. This should be a really good game. Duke, by all accounts, looks like the best team in the country. If I had to pick a national championship winner today, it would be the Duke Blue Devils. But North Carolina's won 3 out of the last 4 years at Cameron Indoor Stadium. Since Hubert Davis has been the head coach of the Tar Heels, they've always played Duke tough in that building. They're 13.5-point underdogs tomorrow. We all saw earlier this week when NC State played at Duke, they were winning at halftime. They were winning at the early parts of the second half. NC State came out. They were hitting a bunch of threes. They were playing loose. They were playing free, and they looked really good against Duke. I think UNC is going to do the same thing. They know all the pressure is on Duke in this game. Carolina always plays up to the level of competition when they go up against Duke, and I think we're going to see that again on Saturday. So I'll take North Carolina plus the 13.5 against Duke. Once again, our best bets for today, Patrick Mahomes, Super Bowl MVP at +105, Indiana plus 12.5 against Purdue is going to be our dog of the day. And North Carolina plus 13.5 against Duke is going to be our best bet. Thanks again to Matt Horner for joining us on the show today. Hope you guys have an awesome weekend. Enjoy the college hoops tomorrow. We will see you on Monday.